The time is 8:45 p.m. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Here's the news edited by Anjana Dodamgoda and read by Tilani Pires. The headlines. The President sets off to attend the COP28 World Leaders Summit scheduled to be held in the UAE. The US welcomes Sri Lanka's debt deal with creditors' nations. Pastor Jerome leaves the CID after being questioned for 8 hours. The Central Cultural Fund informs the Parliament Committee watching the sunrise in Sigiriya earns more than $3,000 a day. The Saudi Arabian Airlines to resume flights to Sri Lanka. And on international news, the US says Indian government official directed plot to assassinate Sikh activist. And on sports news, First Capital announces platinum sponsorship and steps onto the rugby field with CRNFC. The President's Media Division said President Ranil Wickremesinghe has left the island to attend the COP28 World Leaders Summit to be held in Dubai, UAE. The 2023 United Nations Climate Change Conference will be held from November 30th until December 12th with the aim of tackling pressing climate change issues and addressing critical decisions. The Sri Lankan leader, accompanied by 3 ministers, 2 opposition MPs and 20 young participants passionate about the environmental concerns, will take part in this pivotal conference in Dubai. The primary objective of the Sri Lankan delegation is to harness support and collaboration from countries in the tropical belt to influence policy-making decisions on a global scale. President Wickremesinghe will be envisioning 3 key focal points at the event: the launch of the Climate Justice Forum, the Tropical Belt Initiative, and the establishment of a climate change university. The United States has welcomed the in-principle agreement reached between Sri Lanka and the Official Creditor Committee on specific financing terms to restructure the island's nation's debt in line with the parameters set in the International Monetary Fund program. The U.S. Ambassador in Colombo, Julie Chung, said this agreement supports a viable path to economic stability in Sri Lanka. Chung emphasized that the agreement on debt restructuring and sound economic policies are crucial for the timely release of the next tranche of the IMF's bailout package, which he said would provide the much-needed financial support for continued economic stabilization, recovery and the improvement of public services benefiting the people of Sri Lanka. The ambassador reiterated that the United States stands by Sri Lanka for sustainable recovery. Controversial Sri Lankan pastor Jerome Fernando left the Criminal Investigations Department after providing a statement for 8 hours. Pastor Jerome Fernando, who is wanted by the police, arrived in the country yesterday. He was, however, not arrested upon arriving as per a court order issued after considering a petition filed by him. However, Pastor Jerome reported to the CID today as per a court order which ordered him to provide a statement within 48 hours of his arrival in Sri Lanka. Pastor Jerome Fernando was wanted by the Sri Lanka police after allegedly having made derogatory statements about Lord Buddha, Islam and Hinduism in front of a packed congregation in May this year. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The recommendations of the Sectoral Oversight Committee on Religious Affairs and Coexistence were received to amend the Central Cultural Fund Act by imposing regulations on how the money should be used specifically so that the money available in the Central Cultural Fund cannot be used for illegal activities. This was stated when the said committee met in Parliament on Monday under the chairmanship of MP Upul Mahendra Rajapaksa. The Director General of the fund, Professor Gamini Ranasinghe, stated that at present more than $3,000 are earned by providing the opportunity to foreigners to see the beauty of the sunrise in Sigiriya. The Director General of the Central Cultural Fund stated that the sectors that can further attract tourists around Sigiriya are being identified, and KOICA has agreed to provide an aid of $8 million to make these activities more successful. The parliamentarians Venerable Athureliya Ratanathera, M. Rameshwaran, Isuru Dodangoda and Kumarasiri Ratnayaka participated at the Sectorial Oversight Committee. The Minister of Economy and Planning of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Faisal bin Ali Ibrahim, has announced that the country's national carrier Saudia, formerly known as Saudi Arabian Airlines, would recommence flights to Sri Lanka very soon. Announcing the matter, Saudi Minister Faisal bin Ali Ibrahim also took Note that the resumption of flights to Sri Lanka will contribute to capturing a sizable market of affluent Saudi travellers to Sri Lanka, and Sri Lankan Minister of Foreign Affairs said in a statement. That ends local news for now.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Mahatma.
The President Ranil Wickremesinghe has jovially hinted at how the business community supported tax cuts imposed by former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa in 2020. President Wickremesinghe attended the Ceylon Chamber's Economic Summit as a chief guest yesterday. Speaking during the event, President Wickremesinghe pointed out that the business community welcomed former President Gotabaya Rajapaksa's tax cuts in 2020. The President made this remark during an interactive session with Ceylon Chamber of Commerce Chairman Duminder Hulangamur. That was the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Mahatma.
And on Watchlight tonight, the Minister of Highways announced today the new Kalani Bridge will be temporarily closed for traffic due to essential maintenance work. In a statement issued by the ministry said that the new Kalani Bridge will be closed for traffic in 3 phases starting tomorrow. Accordingly, the 3 phases are as follows. Phase 1 from 9 p.m. on December 1st to 6 a.m. on December 4th. Phase 2 from 9 p.m. on December 8th to 6 a.m. on December 11th, and Phase 3 from 9 p.m. on December 15th to 6 a.m. on December the 18th. The Minister of Highways requests motorists to use alternative routes to avoid traffic congestion. That came to you in Watchlight. Moving on with world news and the headlines first. The USA's Indian government official directed plot to assassinate Sikh activist. Joy and relief as 17 Thai workers return home. Israel-Hamas truce extended to a 7th day. The authorities in the United States have said that an Indian government official directed a failed plot to assassinate a Sikh separatist on U.S. soil as they announced charges against a man accused of orchestrating the attempted murder. On Wednesday, federal prosecutors said that Nikhil Gupta, a 50-year-old Indian man, had worked with an Indian government intelligence and security worker in a clandestine effort to kill a Sikh activist in New York. Prosecutors did not name the Indian official or the target, but described the target as a critic of the Indian government and an advocate for an independent Sikh state in the Punjab region, home to a large number of Sikhs and once the site of a movement to create Khalistan, a Sikh homeland independent from India. Joyous scenes unfolded outside Bangkok International Airport as 17 Thai hostages freed by Hamas returned home. 30-year-old Poswaran Pinalkalo, who was held in captivity for nearly 50 days, fell to his knees and cried when he saw his father. A beaming Kompana Sudalmai rushed to his son and hugged him before his smile turned into tears of relief. The Egyptian and Qatari negotiators are working to extend a truce in Gaza for an additional 2 days to facilitate the release of further hostages and prisoners and to allow more aid into the strip, according to Egypt's State Information Service. J.R. Rashwan, head of the State Information Service, said temporary truce between Israel and Hamas was extended into a 7th day thanks to intense Egyptian-Qatari efforts. Under the extension agreement, 10 Israeli hostages and 30 Palestinian prisoners are to be released with the continued flow of humanitarian aid to the north and south of the Gaza Strip in the same quantities agreed upon in the previous 6 days of the truce. Back to the world news headlines. The USA's Indian government official directed plot to assassinate Sikh activist. Joy and relief as 17 Thai workers return home. Israel-Hamas truce extended to a 7th day. That ends world news.
Development news.
The Board of Investment of Sri Lanka said the agreement signed on establishing the first cable car operation in Sri Lanka will be a unique experience that brings much-needed novel facts as the destination for international travellers, while it also opens a new page of adventure tourism in Sri Lanka. Issuing a statement, the BOI said an agreement worth $4.5 million was signed with Amber Adventure and Ambulvavar Biodiversity Centre to establish the first cable car operation in Sri Lanka. The BOI further said that the cable car will be constructed with technical and product expertise from China Machine Building International Corporation. That ends development news. Moving on with sports news. The First Capital Holdings plc, a Janashakti Group company, proudly announces its partnership with the Ceylonese Rugby and Football Club as a platinum sponsor for the upcoming rugby season. This collaboration marks First Capital's first venture into the rugby realm through its association with CRNFC, with aims of fostering the growth of rugby in Sri Lanka, which boasts a large following. CRNFC, with its illustrious 100-year legacy in Sri Lankan rugby, stands as a testament to the country's rich rugby heritage, having produced exceptional players who have represented the nation. In line with this legacy, the club has a visionary plan to establish a rugby academy in the future. First Capital is proud to partner with this exceptionally strong team and will support CRNFC through yet another successful rugby season by partnering with the CRNFC, one of the greatest rugby clubs in Sri Lanka. That came to you in sports news.
Go ekak tiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න as වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Sitma Associates Private Limited, a leading printing and packaging service provider in the country, bagged the Gold Award in the medium-scale category at the National Industrial Excellence Awards 2023, organised by the Industrial Development Board. The award was received by the company's Managing Director, Harendra Ganiwatta, Chief Financial Officer, Romesh Eshan, and Head of Sales, Diluk Prasad, at a grand ceremony held at the Nelum Pokuna Mahinda Rajapaksa Theatre in Colombo under the patronage of the President and Minister of Finance, Economic Stabilisation and National Policies, Ranil Wickremesinghe. That ends business news.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak tiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න as වහගෙන දැකපු වීන හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
And on economic news, the Committee on Public Finance took into consideration the Value-Added Tax Amendment Bill, which aims to remove VAT exemptions on certain items and includes provisions to discontinue the simplified VAT system. An official representing the Ministry of Finance stated that agricultural machinery and other equipment, including chemical fertilizer, which was listed as exempted previously, will be VAT liable under the said bill. Adding to the said official stated that agricultural seeds, agricultural plants, shrimp feed, inclusive of prawn feed, and animal feed, excluding poultry feed, will however be exempted from VAT. The Committee of Public Finance further revealed that the elimination of VAT exemptions will not impact the fares of Uber and PickMe. That came to you in economic news.
Weather report.
Showery weather conditions expected to enhance over the island due to the low pressure area over the southeast Bay of Bengal Sea area, and northeast monsoon is gradually getting established over the island. Showers or thundershowers will occur at times in the northern, north central and eastern provinces. Heavy showers about 100 millimeters are likely at some places in the eastern province and in the Polonnaruwa district. The showers or thundershowers will occur at several places in other provinces at night. A fairly heavy showers about 75 millimeters are likely at some places in the western and Sabaragama provinces and in Gaul and Mathura districts. That was the weather report. And now to in this news broadcast, the main points once again. The President sets off to attend the COP28 World Leaders Summit scheduled to be held in the UAE. The US welcomes Sri Lanka's debt deal with creditor nations. Pastor Jerome leaves the CID after being questioned for 8 hours. The Central Cultural Fund informs the Parliament Committee watching the sunrise in Sigiriya earns more than $3,000 a day. A Saudi Arabian Airlines to resume flights to Sri Lanka. The Saudi Arabian Airlines to resume flights to Sri Lanka. And on international news, the US says Indian government officials directed plot to assassinate Sikh activist. And on sports news, First Capital announces platinum sponsorship and steps onto the rugby field with CRNFC. That ends this news broadcast. And as always on a Thursday night, it's back to Marilla Van Dort after a lapse of a week, I guess. Back to work, as always, behind the mic and all set and ready to give you your kind of music at your request. Back to you, Marilla, once again.
Thank you, Tilani. That was our very own Tilani Pires bringing you the main news broadcast right here from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Well, it's after a week that I'm seeing Tilani in the studio and doing a wonderful job as always, and wishing you nothing but the absolute best and to have a safe journey back home. The time is exactly 9 p.m. on the dot. This is Radio Sri Lanka.